Welcome, one and all, to another edition
welcome.
of Humpday Q&A.
Simon's
Wow, it was
always
a busy.
a nice guy. He welcomes me every week.
I wasn't working with you. I'm working with the people. Come on. You know. Right.
Feel the love in the room.
How was your week, Scott?
My week was pretty darn good. We went to the beach. The weather was fantastic, except for the fact that the water was freezing. We had a big storm that brought in water from deep out at sea, and the water was about 25 degrees Fahrenheit colder than the air.
Okay, I don't know how many degrees it is. Was it 8 degrees Fahrenheit to 1 degree Celsius? Whatever. Anyway,
something like
right.
That. It was cold.
Let's jump in, and then we get our other guests on, and we can start talking about stuff and getting questions answered and doing cool things. Right. I'll switch over to the stream. Where is it? There it is.
All right. Stop. Be nice. Be respectful. Be constructive. Don't be an idiot. Don't post anything that is adult, rude, offensive statements or that might come from an idiot. Don't advertise or promote your service. Don't spam the same question again and again. This is the one we actually do get. If you post a question, we put it at the bottom of the list. Even if you were next, it's going to go to the bottom of the list. Harassment of any kind, incels, bigotry, misogyny, etc., nope. You will get kicked from here, and we will spread your name around everywhere else, and suddenly your logins in other places might stop working too. Last, have fun. This is supposed to be a good time.
Indeed, have fun. My name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter Community Leader, CTO at Dev Angels London, and you can follow me on Twitter /X at Dev Angels London. Scott.
My name is Scott Stahl. I am also a Flutter Community Lead, organizer GDG Cleveland, writing apps under the name Good Dog Apps. And we have others.
Go. We have other guests. Let's go. Randall, there you go.
Hi, Randall Schwartz here. I'm a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert for 5.5, maybe almost 6 years now, since the beginning of the program anyway. And that means I spend most of my time answering questions for all y'all on the various socials like Discord and Slack and places like that. But for this show, I am the question magician, which means I am watching the chat, watching for lines that have Q: in front of them, which means that it's a question for us to put in the queue. Okay, I've got to do the bad pun this time. And I will be watching for those and making sure that those get noticed by our team.
Hey, everybody. I'm Danielle Cox. I am one of the organizers of the Flutteristas, obviously a Flutter community member, proudly. And I'm also the tech lead for a startup for the Flutter team. And I have a small team of Flutter developers. And we actually work in Flutter Web to a certain extent. I mean, it's mate, I guess you could say. And yeah. Uh-oh. Simon muted himself?
Simon muted himself.
So, I did. Yeah, I muted myself. Sorry.
So, hello, everyone. Long time to see. I'm
welcome,
Raf, for those who remember me from back in the times. I used to help with Flutter London back when I was in England. Good times. And I'm helping sometimes with Flutter community packages. So, yeah, long time to see. Glad to be here.
Where are you now?
Japan.
That's right. I knew that, but I thought maybe else wouldn't. Because we talked about that before the show. You're in Japan. And Scott thinks you have great taste in curtains.
Yes. Beautiful curtains.
We have the same curtains here, and we're on the other side of the world.
Yep. Probably same provider.
It's very strange.
Japan in the north, in Fukushima, actually. So, yeah.
So, what's the community like down in Japan for Flutter?
So actually, good question, because last month was first Flutter, like English-speaking Flutter conference, Flutter Ninjas.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, I was told that that's also happening next year. So presentation's ready. So and it was a great time. So yeah,
I definitely had FOMO with Flutter Ninjas for sure.
Twitter. So you get updates.
Yeah, they've got a Flutter Ninjas Twitter account, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So, so me and Danielle were out of everyone here. Me and Danielle were at FlutterCon last week. How did that go, Danielle? What did you think?
I thought it went great. It was fun as always. It's always a good reminder that Flutter is an amazing technology, and the Flutter community is an amazing community. And so I mean, I'm always struck with how lucky we are that those two things actually fit together. Because if either one of them wasn't as amazing as it is, the whole experience would not be as good. So that's one of the things that conferences do. I mean, we can watch the videos later, but actually being able to see the people, get up and give them, it was good. I thought my talk went well. We had a great Flutteristas panel. I know Simon's talk was well regarded as always, and then I mean, you even filled in for someone, right?
Yeah. So sadly, one of the speakers couldn't make it. I think from illness. So I quickly dived in and said, "Oh, you know what? I'll do some live coding. Why not?" Actually, I think I did pretty well. An hour and a half. It was at the end of the day, so I could go over. So I went over a little bit, and just a little hour and a half slot of putting something together. It was pretty cool. I just found someone who did who's done a video of a recap. Well,
I was going to comment on this was during my talk, I probably said at least 4 times about how miserable working with JSON is. So I'm glad to see someone noticed that.
Nice.
I was out getting a suntan, so I missed it.
The video will come up, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, the videos will come out. If anyone just searches like FlutterCon 24, we get loads of pictures and videos, I'm sure, and like of everything that was going on. There's loads of stuff happening. I'm seeing that people have published various videos online as well. So,
and speaking of such, real quick, it's probably a good time to plug that we're actually getting our own FlutterCon here in the U.S.
Yes.
And so we've got that coming up in September. Also, co-happening with DroidCon in New York City. And there's still time if you want to give a talk. There's still time to get your papers in. I believe it closes Friday.
Yes,
yeah, closes Friday.
So get your papers in. If you get accepted, it's an amazing experience to do.
And here is the
link. If you
link.
want to be sure you get accepted, send each of us 100 euros.
Don't.
No, do not do that.
It's not going to happen.
100.
If anybody sent me 100 euros, I would do 2 things. I would put it in the bank, and I would abstain from voting on the talk.
I was going to say you could give me a cut.
Yeah.
I think the answer is donated to the Flutter community Patreon, because we have a Patreon. See the segue? See that segue there? Right?
Exactly.
So yeah, if anyone does want to help in terms of community stuff, making sure that we can always do these kind of things and more, feel free to go to patreon.com/fluttercommunity.
Yeah. And I do want to say we have organized as a limited liability corporation. The main costs right now for the community are the Zoom and also this StreamYard, but we also do try to help people out with stuff, and hopefully we will be doing something more, but I don't want to let that cat out of the bag until we're sure it's going to happen.
Right. I was trying.
So right now it's a Schrodinger's cat. It's a Schrodinger's cat. We don't know whether it's going to happen or not.
Right.
Okay.
Simon, did you throw up the link for the for FlutterCon US, or did we get distracted on the Patreon?
Mm-hmm. It's the specialized one.
It's both are in there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see it. It's in there. Yeah, for sure. Because I mean,
What's this X thing?
we have lots of great conferences that have been happening over in Europe for the last few years. I mean, some amazing conferences.
Yep.
We have not had these in the U.S. So if you want to see more of this in the U.S., we
Come
need
along.
to
Show up.
need people to show up, and because I mean, I would love not to have to fly to Europe just to see my friends.
Yeah. I would definitely fly to Europe to see other things, but it would be nice for the friends to come here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to share this photo.
Yes.
Look at that is.
Yeah.
Me, Majid,
That's
Ahmed.
That is a really good example of how tall everybody is, because Simon and I are. Majid is not quite 2 meters. Not quite. I think he's like 6'3". In Imperial, he's tall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait
till the.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, wait till the video comes out. We see him on stage, like running up everyone at the very beginning of the conference, because you can really see how tall he is. Then, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was going to say, Pooja taught me something about the way they do things in India, where it's everything's meters. There was a big soccer tournament going on in Germany, so there's a lot of fun about the whole. Yep, there we go. I like that. And anyway, what she told me, she said everything's in meters except for someone's height, and that's in inches.
Really?
So I thought that was very interesting. Yeah.
It's kind of funny because when I stand next to Majid, he's like up here, and Pooja fits under my chin.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I was hanging out a lot with like Pooja, and then Daria is also very height, vertically challenged, and yeah.
Yeah, don't mess with Daria though, boy.
Oh yeah.
She may look little, but she'll run you down.
Her talk was amazing. She did she Harry Potter themed it, and so while people were coming into the room and stuff, she actually had her phone like playing the theme music from Harry Potter. So when you were walking in, there's the Harry Potter music going on. It's like
she's always worried it won't be good, and then she's always great.
She was amazing.
So for those that don't know, we got ourselves a massive blow up dash as well.
Wow.
So you can get pictures taken with a huge
huge
dash.
Wow. It looks like trick photography.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh, he also for the group picture he did the same thing.
Look at how tall he is next to the podium.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
That's a good picture.
Yeah, okay, that gives you an idea, Daria.
Go back up there. Go back through.
What? Go back to where?
The picture in front of the last picture.
Scroll back up. Yeah, that picture.
It's got Daria in it.
You got to show it though.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. So just that gives you an idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some heights.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just.
There's Roa. Roa's often on here watching, so that's cool.
Oh, there is. There you
go. Yeah. See the Harry Potter.
Wait a minute. What are you doing watching, PK? Why aren't you here with us? Come on. I know you have access to the link in the Humpday Q&A channel. Come on, buddy.
Yep.
Oh yeah, for those that don't know, I've got a new plushie here at the back, Revenue Cat.
I didn't get the cat
actually. And then we've got the I can't remember what type of fox this is. It's the
Fennec fox.
Fennec fox. Yeah, Fennec fox.
Flash the Fennec fox.
Flutter fly.
Yeah. So. Yeah, but I didn't get one of the revenue kitties. So.
Oh, we've got 8 questions in the quew.
Well, that's awesome. Let's keep going then.
I guess we'll have to crack on and get going, yeah?
And I'm going to step backstage. So I'm still here. I'm watching, ever watching. Yes. So I'll be I'll be watching it there.
Yeah, and waiting for the magic word. Yeah, he's waiting for the magic word, which I believe is RiverPod, and then it'll pop back up. We say it 3 times. He won't.
What?
It's
What?
always-
Riverpod, Riverpod, Riverpod.
Was that
And then you do it again to get rid of him.
You'll jump out of the closet.
Beetlejuice? That was it. Beetlejuice, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
Beetlejuice, yeah.
This is Beetlejuice. If you ever get a chance to see Beetlejuice the musical, go for it. It's
They're
nothing
doing
like
it-
the
they're
movie,
doing it,
and
you
it's
know-
hilarious.
You know they're doing a new Beetlejuice film.
Really? That I did not know. All right. Moving onward through the fog.
Do it.
Is it better to use one screen and react to different screen sizes in the build, or to have separate screens for each size and do the differentiation in a wrapper widget? Any tips for bigger projects?
I
I
have an
think
opinion on
what you're talking about is a switch
I have an
in
opinion
the
on
build.
this. Very much so.
on.
I think they both are useful. So like in my project, I have 2 or 3 like breakpoints, and so I know how to. I build it a certain way on a small screen, certain way on maybe a tablet, and a certain way on a desktop. And because ours is a web app, so it can be run on a phone or it can be run on your desktop, anything like that. So, I've got like a few breakpoints, and then inside the breakpoints, it's all just reactive. And so I kind of support a little bit of both of those, but.
So
So
what I'm thinking is if it's a switch case in like in the home screen build method, which will take off to different screens depending on the breakpoint sizes.
Well, but, okay, but there's,
so I go on.
I was going to say, yeah, but you know, like in my app, I start off with like this big screen for offer selection, and how it's going to split into smaller screens is totally different than how the rest of the app is going to split into smaller screens. So it's not like you can do it up front. I mean, this is definitely a per widget thing. When you're building when you're building your screen, each different screen needs to have an understanding of how it breaks down. Now, you may want breakpoints to be consistent, but what you're doing inside of them is going to be different no matter what, I think.
Yeah,
See, I'm confused. Why would you make different decisions though? Like if you went to a side-by-side, like Simon, if you went to a side-by-side view on a tablet and you branch into a different widget tree that is made for side-by-side on tablet, why, Danielle and Simon, why would you deviate from that and start playing mix and match with the per widget thing instead?
Well, I mean, it's per screen. I mean, it's on the screen, but it's not that I don't have anything. It's really tablet. I just have, I want to lay out a side by side, using flowing it side by side maybe, and in some cases, or I may want to go full screen for a different screen because it doesn't matter on the width and stuff. But the whole point is the fact that if you want to try to write your screen so that it's reactive all the way from the smallest to the largest, and that's all built in the same widget tree, you're going to have a lot of conditionals that may or may not be relevant there. Whereas if you have certain breakpoints, because like for example, the breakpoint might be where I go to side by side versus where I go, single, and that may be all I need. And again, there's ways to do that with widgets. If that's all it is, if that's the only decision you're making, there's widgets that you can use that'll do that for you, and you can build one tree. But I don't know.
I'm just going to say both points of both ways of doing things are valid. I mean, like you can have like an entry point in your app go, oh, on my tablet, then do this completely different widget structure for a tablet, right? But then you're going to find out that when you're doing that, oh, I still want the same buttons, I still want the same controls. So you're going to be sharing, right?
Yeah.
Right. But it's just about how you want to break things up. But it might be that at component level, you want to change the way the padding works because it's tablet or if it's on phone. So it's about finding what works with the structure of your application UI. Unless you know exactly how you're going to be building it up front, it's hard to make those decisions, right?
I can see Jens jumping up and down right now.
But having like just one widget with lots and lots of if statements and conditionals, right, is not a good idea, right? So it's about so it's about picking and choosing where you do your switches, right?
Yeah.
You don't probably want to do it at the high level, completely abstractly, right? But there'll be portions of which you want to maybe help. I'll give an example here. The WoW shopping app we've been working on in the community, right? So we did a tablet version of that. In fact, there's a live stream coding with Simon where me and Randall did that, I think. And when we did the tablet one, actually the main screen wanted to do a side by side so that you had your products, you had like a navigation menu on the side, and then when you open up a product, the details popped out over the top, which is a completely different way of navigating compared to phone, right? Which was very much your main screen, and then you've got your screens that come over the top. So in that situation, we did have, I'm going to switch out this layout completely, or this structure of the screen. But then there'll be other sections where we'll add more padding. So we'll do a conditional padding. It just makes what makes most sense for what you're doing, and it's not confusing and not overly, like
the one thing I occasionally see that I'm not a big fan of is taking a look at how big the whole screen is and making decisions based on that, because I may be showing something much smaller. And so that's something I'll see, and I don't like that. I much prefer,
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna just sorry, I need to caveat that with don't make layout size changes based on the physical size of the screen. However, you do want to know if it's tablet or not, and you can do that. So what you can do, normally what you do at the top level is you can make a widget that monitors what's it called? Observer? No. Widgets observer, right?
Widgets.
Yeah.
Bind.
I think it's just widgets observer.
It's not binding instance, is it?
No, binding observer. Binding observer, isn't it? Widgets binding observer. God, my brain. Where is it? Too much stuff. Widgets. Widgets binding observer. Yeah, widgets binding observer. Yeah, widgets binding observer. Anyway, you set one of these up, and you can say did change metrics. Then go get the media query from the view, and then you can calculate is my smallest screen width size my breakpoint for tablet, and then set a global flag that is tablet true or false that you can use provider and provide down the tree or something like I think that's what we actually ended up doing on the WoW shopping app. So let me go dig it out and put it in the chat if it's there, and then people can see how you do this kind of stuff.
Now, how much do you tie yourself in knots to make sure you're reactive when someone's resizing the window and crossing those kinds of breakpoints? Do you care, or is that such an edge case you're not that worried about it?
I'm going to say that's about if you're doing what type of application you're doing. Because if you're doing a desktop or web, then yes, right, and that's reacting to the size of the content that you're displaying, not necessarily the size of the window. Right. The last thing you want to do, I think we spoke about this before, is what most people end up doing is doing media query size of, or media query of, even worse, and then on every widget. And then what happens is when you resize the window, every widget rebuilds, and the entire subtree rebuilds, and then just like it's chaos, right? So I mean, the idea here is that use layout is where those decisions should be. So make some good render object breakpoint widgets that actually do it in layout rather than in build.
Well, now, another thing that I'm thinking is, Simon, you were mentioning padding and everything, and I can hear Jens jumping up and down right now saying no ice cream for Simon if he doesn't come up with this, because when doing the layout, you can put the padding in the layout for whatever breakpoints you have. Then you have that layout, and then it turns around and grabs the common to all widget, like let's say a custom button. But if you use widget book, then that button exists, but it does not have a set size. The parent has to set the size. So, and that seems to be the correct way to do it. I mean, whether you use widget book or not, don't put a set size in your buttons or anything. You give the size of it from the parent. So you can combine a size box and a padding, or use a container with a padding and stick your common button inside of that. And then you have different padding and different sized boxes per screen. And another thing too is, though, when dragging a window on the web, I understand we might not want to check for size, but we probably do want to check for aspect ratio. Because if you have something that's taller than it is wide and suddenly the user drags the window to be wide, that could end up looking pretty silly.
You want to, I mean, here's the thing, right? The way that most people do this is with Layout Builder, which is what it's designed for. The problem here is that you can't set a breakpoint for your Layout Builder, right? So you end up in the session, is this idea, as soon as layout happens, it builds, right? Which basically means potentially you can get a lot of building taking place unnecessarily. So it's kind of nice to be able to put some sort of breakpoint in there and decide what amount of padding or what amount of changes you're going to do. Yeah, anyway, we've covered this topic quite a bit. So let's just quickly just show you. I just want to show this example, and then we can move on. So here is let me make it a bit bigger even. There we go. So yes, this is a little widget that I'll bring up in a second, the source code, but device type builder. Oops. And as you can see here, we get back the device orientations, device type orientation state. So it tells us it's a tablet and its landscape. Then we're going to use the horizontal navigation style, and then we're going to use the tablet layout versus a vertical layout, for example. Nice, simple way of saying, okay, when my device type changes, i.e. one of these flags, then I can change the type of layout that I'm going to do. And this doesn't have to, this could be at screen level, so you could wrap your entire screen and the entire screen widget changes, or you could do this kind of thing, as you can see here, inside the screen at a particular level. And then, you know, I'll post the link to this file in the chat, and you can, and then further to that is, here's like the device, what you just saw, the device type piece. So we've got device type, orientation, the state, which groups the two things together. We've got some nice little conditionals that we can just check on, and a notifier that is also a widget's binding observable. And this basically just links the two things together. So this gets that platform's dispatch size, checks our shortest side to determine if we're considered a tablet or not. And if that changes, we'd say that our state is updated. If the orientation changed, we updated, and then notify the listeners that it changes. And then, you know, there's our builder, and it's an animated builder that just listens on that notifier. I mean, there's no zero state management going on here. This is all just all built in Flutter and, you know, widgets and everything else. Simple enough.
Wait. The animated builder reacts to a change in orientation, so it's reactive depending on the state of the orientation, but there's no state management here.
No, we're talking about no state
management.
That hurt
my brain.
Yeah, but no, I'm saying the state management, but you mean what I'm trying to say is it's not, we're not using provider, we're not using, you know, Riverpod or anything like that. So you can just copy paste and it will just work, right? Like,
that's one.
So if you guys want,
so that's one mention to bring Randall on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Two more Randall shall appear.
Okay,
yeah. So hopefully that's helpful.
I know we don't want to drag this out too much, but Raf put in an interesting link in the middle of all this without saying anything. Raf, why were you bringing up the adaptive scaffold?
But actually, you might look at the package. It's Flutter Adaptive Scaffold. It's made by Flutter team. I haven't looked at it for a while, but you might want to check. So you basically have small body, medium body, and large body, and it changes depending on your.
I see. So you can set up your breakpoints, nice, and then set up your various ways you want it to behave.
Mm-hmm.
So
you have divided scaffold,
adaptive layout as well. Yeah, it's like slot layout, primary. Oh, nice. Very nice.
Now, by the way, Simon, you had an animated builder in there. Is that something that are you using it like a listenable builder now, like the new listenable builder?
Yeah, it's just there's no. Yeah, listenable builder is an animated builder.
Yeah, I know. I understand.
It's the same thing. There is a value listenable builder if you need the value, but yeah, strictly speaking, not needed.
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. Well, that was a heck of a first question. Let's see here. Second question. I have created an app which works fine on Wi-Fi as soon as I turn on the mobile internet. Yeah, that's usually a good thing to do. But I'm sorry. As soon as I turn on the mobile internet, it gets stuck. It takes a lot of time for a single API call. Permission is given. So in other words, on mobile data, you're getting dragged down. Is that a Flutter thing, or is that an Android problem or iOS problem?
I mean, this must be just because your mobile internet is crap.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can't think
there's
of
no
Could be
difference.
network.
Like, well, I mean, you could be on like a 2G network for mobile internet, and then it's gonna take a long time and feel like it gets stuck. I mean,
It's a very technical term, folks. It's spelled CRAP.
I mean, the thing here is like, yes, this is normal behavior, right? Like your mobile internet normally is never going to be nowhere near as good as Wi-Fi, right? Your Wi-Fi maybe connects at 300 megabit to a local router that connects to a pretty decent internet connection, whereas your mobile internet, even 4G, it's great and all when it's like full bandwidth, right? But if you're moving around, you're changing cell sites, yeah, it's still better than 3G and 2G and so on. But yeah, it's still going to take time. Now we've got 5G, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I can't. I mean,
If you are, yep, go for it.
all I was going to say is that actually, I mean, that communication is happening at such a low level, the difference between mobile and Wi-Fi, that I can't imagine Flutter's doing anything different, is it?
no, it's not. It doesn't work any different. It makes network connections. It's down to the operating system to schedule that and deploy it. What I will mention though is it can matter about the number of connections you're making. So if your server is not HTTP2 server, the number of connections really matters. What you do is you get what's called a head of line blocking. So what happens is a connection is made, it sends a request, and that request has to come before the next response to the next request, and so on. That's more about the server you're connecting to and how you're connecting to it. For most of the time, HTTP2, you won't have any of these issues.
Question. If I understand it's not a Flutter issue, I'm sure it's not a Flutter issue itself, but what if they're using a package for that kind of connectivity? Could it be a problem within the package instead of within the OS?
I mean, don't get me wrong. There could be like client-side logic, right? Which is messing something up. Like it's, I don't know, pausing a future before it can make any requests or some other sort of weird, funky thing. But I highly doubt it.
Yeah, but I mean, that once again, we're talking about only a difference that happens between Wi-Fi and mobile data, and that just seems to me to be so low that I can't imagine. I mean, what packages are going to really care about that too much unless you're, wanting to be kind to your
some
mobile
type
data.
of a connectivity package, possibly. Maybe not handling mobile data correctly.
The developer here might have actually been doing something with that and said, "Oh, when it connects to mobile data, then do it this way, right?" Which might end up being slower.
Well, I mean, there's times where you don't want to do anywhere near as much, data transfer on a mobile network.
I'm also going to say, Adil, have you gone onto the dev tools and gone into the network tab? It shows you the number of requests, the amount of data, the speed of those transactions, and everything else. Also, I'll be honest with you, this happens all the time as well. People just upload an image, let's say user generated content, and it's like 4 megabytes, 8 megabytes image, and then just expect it to instantly appear on people's devices. And the answer is no, it's not. What you need to do is have a server-side service that is resampling those images down to various different sizes, various different formats, and then you send out the smallest ones. You use things like blur hash, right, to generate a blurry version of the image as a placeholder, so you can speed up the feeling of the app whilst it's loading images. There's a lot of things that you can do.
So it's like an icon, so people won't notice that it's blurry.
Yeah, well, it's actually a blurry picture, but it's made out of the gradients, overlapping gradients. So think about this: any image can be made if you overlap enough pixels, right? right? Enough gradients, right? You can pretty much make anything. And the idea is that you do that just to like maybe 12 different nodes, 12 different gradients, and that gives you enough to kind of get what the image is going to be without actually transferring any of the image data. And a blur hash is basically for expression of some bytes, probably, you know, like 100 characters, something like that. So it's nice and easy to input inside your data model for each of your data items, so that you can scroll and actually see placeholder information rather than gray boxes, right?
Alrighty.
Anyway, yeah, so hopefully that helps the deal. I mean, check the bandwidth that you're using, right? Like it's probably just that number of requests and bandwidth.
And of course, it's definitely useful to know if you're requesting a lot of data or not. You know, like the image that Simon mentioned.
Also, or deal, you can also, if you're not already using it, use Cache Network Image, the package,
Yes.
or Octo Image. They will cache locally on the file system the images, so you're not scrolling and re-downloading them. Which, trust me, if you're on a mobile internet like that, you'll get a head of line blocking happening if you're going to do that, right?
I love
Images
Cache
are very
Network Image
large.
because it's so simple. You really don't have to do hardly anything. Really
Use the widget.
Alrighty.
Use the provider. Job done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Done. Alrighty. When it comes to performance, can Dart be as performant as languages like C on a server? Dart can be compiled to machine code and should not have any disadvantages compared to low-level languages such as R.
Or maybe that's right. Maybe R is
I think you're saying right. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Harold,
I think
go on.
I'm just thinking it's a question such as it depends, because when Dart compiles to machine code, it's going to be pretty darn performant. But if you're doing something like a game where you're min-maxing performance, it's not going to get that granular.
I'm going to say, yeah, no, I'm going to say yes, Harold. In short, for when it comes to server, we said like C on the server. Yes, it is. There are situations where you're going to be doing, let's say, this is the difference not between Dart and C, but any high level language in C, right? And that's if you're going to be doing like low level processing, right? So things like, let's say you're doing image processing, right, or something like that, where you're looking at the pixel values for 8 million pixels, an 8 megapixel image. Yeah, you're going to get a performance difference between Dart and C, right? But for the most part, you're talking about object level, changing variables, everything like that. You're going to see zero impact in terms of performance between C and C++ and Dart, right? So, in fact, Dart on the server side has been used a lot, and in fact, you'll find it more performant than most other languages, right? In fact, did we bring up the Sharp benchmark last week, or was that a couple of weeks ago? Let me bring this up quickly. For those that haven't seen this, this is see if this comes up. There we go. So this I'll post a link to this in the chat. So this is a benchmark of web frameworks to their languages and various other things. So you can see here things like, obviously Rust is great, but there's .iot. So 50 megabytes of memory, you've got stability, you've got the latency, you've got the number of requests per second. So, you know.
So basically, is there anything above Rust?
Well, it depends on what metric you're looking at, right? Okay. So look, you can even get Java operating at a high number of requests per second than Rust items, right? But then look at the memory usage. Yeah. But this is the difference. Look at the memory usage, right, of 202 megabytes to do that versus, okay, I can do 15,000 at 5.7 megabytes of memory, right? So this is all the difference between languages, again, for like on what you might be doing, right? So latency as well. Again, are you actually going to be, like, for most part, you're never going to get this request per second out of any service, right? This is great for a benchmark, but it means nothing because most of these requests are going to be bottlenecked by database access or some other external caches or something else, right? This is your all this framework has this benchmarking system has all this source code available, so you can see how they're doing it. But basically, it's the bare minimum so that it can benchmark them all the same, right? As soon as you add in any complexity, you're going to get wildly different numbers, right? So, but anyway, so this is, you can see here the various different versions of Dart. There's Server Pod with Relic, Pharaoh, HB Server.
This can't be right, because what about Kotlin?
Kotlin's Java.
Yeah.
So
there's an example of all the Dart
ones.
It
does compile that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If
I can make one comment here real quick. This is a great example, though, of why when someone says what is best or what's what's performer or whatever, this is a great example of how it's not in a vacuum. Because if you absolutely needed that last little bit, then probably Java is the right way to go, but it's going to cost you a lot of extra in the form of memory. And so that's a big that's a big thing that you need to kind of look holistically at your problem to see that what exactly do you have to do to try to make it better.
Yeah, because I mean, right there, just even the small ones, you're looking at C and Rust with footprints of under 400K, and then JavaScript and Ruby are pushing over 10.5 meg.
Yeah, you can see where Dart. This is interesting to see where Dart sits inside this, right, at 2.3 meg. That is very efficient on its memory usage, and then but I mean, like, again, where do you want to sit this versus like Python? Look at Python at 126 seconds versus 2 seconds. Like, there's this huge difference. I don't know. Yeah, so it really does depend, right?
One other thing I'd like to throw out real quick: there are two people in the audience who need to be on the show, Mr. O'Sullivan and Ms. Alamuhi.
Yeah, drop by anytime.
Mark hasn't been doing a lot in community in a while, but I do seem to remember one picture with 5 of us who taught a 5.5-hour workshop, impromptu, because we didn't know it was going to be a 5.5-hour workshop.
And up fixing a lot of people's installations, I think.
Yeah. That was
okay.
half of it.
So that was
Next.
What was that question? That was this question, right? Yeah.
Yes. I'm getting over here. Where? All right. Any way to load SVG images in WASM? I haven't played with WASM yet. How about you all?
I mean,
only basics.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, any of the Dart code should compile to WASM. So the Flutter SVG package, it depends on a package called SVG. I think it is just SVG. And SVG will load SVGs in Dart without any reliance on Flutter. And that should compile to WASM and use inside the browser, no worries.
That was Rody, wasn't it?
No, it's John Ryan, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can also rely on the browser the browser has APIs for loading images, including SVG. So you can also try that. I mean, it all depends on what you mean by load as well. I mean, there's loaders in parse, but there's loaders in I want to render this as pixels, right? So, yeah, for instance, maybe clarify what you're looking for.
Do you have an example where it's not loading in WASM?
Yeah.
Load otherwise? I've not done much specifically with WASM yet. I mean, web is defaulting to that for Chrome, but then I also run stuff on Safari. So I've not really been coming into cases where it's been different, but I've also not so since I haven't noticed anything, I've not tried to go in and say, hey.
I was mistaken. It was Dan Field. I did Flutter SVG, not John Ryan.
Yeah.
The vector graphics. I think this was it, right? Anyway, but yeah, so you've got Flutter SVG. Try that one out. There's also a package called Web. Web is the new replacement for Dart HTML, which covers all the new web APIs. There should be no reason why this doesn't load SVG. I don't know if it's got SVG length, number, angle, element, transform. All this is accessible from the entire web package, accessible from WASM. That's the whole point of creating the new one. So yeah, there you go. I'm sure there's you can find the exact right function. It's actually, we'll all be in the Mozilla Developer Network, MDN. Load SVG. So it comes up.
Right, but Flutter SVG was not designed for web, was it?
I think you can get to work on web. I think at one point I did. The thing is, you don't need to, because the web browsers support SVG natively anyway. So that's the reason why it wasn't needed. So have a quick look around here, see if I can see. I mean, to be honest, looking around, there are ways to do this. So you've got an SVG element has a load event on it. So you can actually just embed an SVG tag, load it with your own data, and then get the load event. But it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. What is your end outcome here, right? Like, all right, let's move on. But hopefully, post another question, and we'll see where we get to. Verdi.
All right.
Who's changed his name?
Century. Sometime, yeah.
He's now.
Verde,
I'm going to call him
what
Green.
are you doing?
I'm going to call him Green now.
What?
He's now called Green.
Well, that's what it always was. Verde is green.
That's his color code.
So it's always been green. Yep.
Right.
All right.
Century sometimes. Oh, gone.
My job. Century sometimes reports watchdog termination errors on iOS, suggesting that it's related to RAM overuse. Any recommendations on how to debug or track it?
Century sometimes reports watchdog termination errors. Watchdog termination errors.
Excuse me. Goodness.
It could just be that your application has been background and been terminated. Are you okay, question. Are you saying Century is suggesting it's related to RAM overuse, or you think because a watchdog error is about RAM overuse? Because I don't think that's the only reason why that can happen, right? I mean, the answer to this one's pretty tricky, but for most memory leaks is just monitor and use your app for a long period of time and see if the memory usage goes up and continues going up and never correctly cleans up, right? It may be related to RAM overuse. So what can happen, right, is the watchdog stuff is about the operating system monitoring application, right? And I'm assuming here that it's saying that you reach the upper memory limit and then it's going to kill your app, right? I've got nothing but other than, try your app out, right? You could do something where you make a version of your app that's just for debugging. Maybe use it internally, so a small test group that just logs memory usage. So you can capture the memory usage of Dart and just log it every minute, like have a timer whilst the app is running. And then out of the back of that, log it right to disk, flush the disk right. And then next time the app starts up, it sends off the date times and the amounts to some sort of logging service, right? And then you could get a better idea, but you don't want to put that on for like your public facing usage, right? You get a lot of data, probably too much.
Alrighty. Do you agree that the Flutter industry is going through a difficult time and that it's very hard to find a well-paid job? Please ignore if it doesn't fit the format. It depends on what level you're at. If you're a senior, then no, there's still work everywhere. Everybody's asking for seniors instead of juniors. That's pretty common. At least it's not like the early days when people were insisting on 5 years Flutter experience when Flutter was 2 years old. Not kidding. But
yeah, I mean,
what do you think?
The problem, David, is what's happening at the moment is that the number of Flutter's been enticing to a lot of people, right? People try it and they love it. This is just how it seems to work, right? So what happens is you get this kind of big influx of people all the time. So they kind of have this, like pyramid of like learning, right? So you've got people, a very small amount of people that were here at the very beginning, and it trickles down, right? So each year you're getting maybe twice the number of developers introduced into Flutter. So that means that 5 years, there's a huge proportion now of Flutter developers that maybe got 1 year experience at a junior, and it's very difficult for people to hire the roles that they're looking for, where they've got people they're doing it's cross-platform. They want people that have experience in iOS and Android as well as Flutter to bring that together to work on a project. But it's hard to find people with that experience because you need to get that experience over time through the huge amount of Flutter developers that there are. So you need to, this is like most jobs, at the very beginning, you're going to find that with a little amount of experience, you're not going to get a very well-paying position, right? But as your experience grows, you're going to be able to get a higher wage for your commensurate with your experience, right?
Well, it's funny because you talk about fewer developers in the beginning. I remember when we first started, there were, Simon, maybe 80 people, including the Flutter team.
Yeah.
We were all on this chat monstrosity called Gitter. It had one thread.
It's definitely, yeah. I mean, it would flux around, but you have people coming in just and leaving. But yeah, around 100.
Yeah.
Around 100 beginning.
That was September 2017.
Ooh,
now Flutter is the most used multi-platform location on the planet. Yep.
Yeah.
LG TV. I'm thinking, well, LG TV uses WebOS, doesn't it?
Yes.
It doesn't anymore. LG have decided to take on Flutter as their official thing for building apps and UI and everything.
Also,
that was announced.
It's not running Flutter on web. It's actually doing the native thing now.
Yeah, I think they're doing it embedded now, properly native. Yeah.
Interesting.
There's a big push by them to use it. It was it announced in the last Flutter release? I think it was. I can't remember where I saw it, but yeah.
Yeah. That's positive.
So yeah, there's
yet another company using Flutter.
Why not? Yep. But wait, just to be clear, just on this hiring front, like this is what makes the difference. Bigger companies hiring more Flutter developers are willing to hire more junior developers because they want to train them as staff members, right? Become staff engineers. Staff engineers have a different play to having like contractors and freelance, but various different benefits for companies, right? But yeah, I mean, these are the types of positions as a junior you're going to be able to get. You want to be going for as a junior, you want to be going for the larger companies, not for the smaller startups. Small startups need someone that's got a larger range of skill, so they can put them in different roles and have them solve different problems, right? Which means that they're higher paid, right? So you have to kind of take what you can, but yeah, hope that helps.
Yeah, what sometimes is happening that the big companies just take internal developers and just tell them to learn Flutter on the spot, and they just get their internal product and team to develop with Flutter rather than native because they have the knowledge of the product.
Yeah, so, they also do a thing where they'll either hiring some experts, like either consulting is one thing, or also corporate training, right? So to bring people to train their internal teams to
I've
use a
looked
new
into
product or
that.
service.
There was a corporate training company, and I was going to do that kind of training with them. And unfortunately, what they're looking for is something that can be done in 1 or 2 days. And it's like 1 or 2 days, there's not a whole lot we're going to be able
Well,
to teach.
it's more, well, this is it. So this Wrap does this, right? Wrap Pane.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, Wrap does it for React Native.
No, he does it for Flutter. Flutter.
No?
Yeah, it's his own gig now. He just does Flutter now. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
need to catch up with them.
Wrap. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you do it for like, 2-3 days, and it's more like open seminar and then consulting in terms of talking to the client about their particular product or service, and basically explain to them how certain thing features or how you might do something in Flutter that works in the service. So this gives them a head start in terms of, okay, we need to concentrate our effort in learning these specific areas or these techniques or these things that would transition to our product to Flutter, right? But generally, that sort of corporate training is more about what is Flutter, how it works, like getting someone onboarded quickly with the technology. There's going to be a longer term sort of consulting or feedback they can give over a long period of time about what they're building and how they're building it and how they can better build it with Flutter and Dart.
Yeah. All right. I have had something come up, so I'm going to have to step out. Randall, can you step in?
Hang on. Randall. Riverpod.
Yeah.
There we go. Riverpod.
Oh, look, he appeared.
Oh, man. Yeah, sorry, folks.
We get caught up.
I had meant to stay for the whole one this time, but not to be. So I will catch you all next week. And yeah, have fun. And we'll talk later.
Okay.
See you then.
All right.
Ciao.
Here we go. Let's see here.
Right.
So,
What we got next?
yeah. Does using Word cause any problems in libraries? Some that might have issues with Dart or Flutter SDK, for example, HTTP any. Does using Word any cause?
In other words, any version works. Yeah.
Huh?
I don't get this question at all.
I know, neither do I.
I think what he means if you put any in packages.yaml. Does it make
he means in pub. Yeah. Okay, so pubspec YAML.
Yeah.
If you put any as the version, so any is it's the same as putting nothing in there, right? Like first of all, just that you don't have to put a version. It'll use the latest compatible version, right? The problem you've got, Orion, is that if you check out a version of your source code, you want to know that it builds exactly the same way as it did when you wrote the code, right? Now, if you check out that same version of code that you put any in, and it's going to go, oh, so the latest version of HTTP library that I've now got is going to try and compile with that. And it's not going to work because your version was built with the previous version and it's now no breaking changes or something, right? So any works as a quick fix for and there was actually a time, what was that time? There was a Rody Davis, right? When some of the early days of Flutter, there was a thing like, how do I update all my this is before we had pub outdated as a command. Yeah. You would update all your package versions to any, hit pub upgrade, then you take all the versions from pubspec log file and put them back into your pubspec YAML as a way of get all the latest ones that are compatible and you fix any bugs that come up from breaking changes.
But I also use it to diagnose sometimes when I get version solving conflicts. I sometimes will just go set everything to any and just see, is there any solution beyond?
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work at all, then I know that I've really got to dig deeper and find libraries that are much more appropriate. So I sometimes recommend that. Of course, I tell people save all the current version numbers somewhere, and then
also
or
checking. A lot of people don't check in their log files. PubSpec log files are fine to check in for apps. You don't check them in for libraries, right? So if you're building a package or a plugin, don't check in your lock file, because a lock file then locks in a particular version to someone else's project, right? Which makes it incompatible potentially, right? Depending on if you do pub upgrade, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, but if you do it on you want to do it on your apps, because then you're locking in that version number inside your repo. So when you check it out, you're getting the exact same version. But
I'm a big fan of that, by the way. Yeah, definitely. For your app, checking your log files.
It's, believe it or not, to check out a version of a branch or a version of your repo and be able to get it to compile exactly as it was is very important to finding bugs. When you get bugs reported for some old version, you just go back and experiment with it and go, it no longer happens. This bug doesn't happen anymore. There it is, it's happening, but it's not happening anymore. Those kind of issues are because your dependencies have changed and the bug was related to a dependency, probably, right? So you do not want to have those situations.
Yeah,
and you probably want to run the same version of the code that your teammates are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In theory, everything that's within the same minor version should be compatible, but that's theory. That is way theory. That's not even close to reality.
We actually had, so for those that don't know, we had a package ecosystem summit for a 3-hour-long summit at FlutterCon last week. And that was allowed. We invited all the package authors, or some of the Flutter favorite authors, everyone we could, to try and come along, so we could have a big discussion, a roundtable discussion around these kind of issues. And those kind of things were picked up. Like we need to make sure that the Dart team and the Flutter team are more conscious about Semver and how they use these things to make sure that we're getting the proper breaking changes. Also, stop pinning versions unnecessarily, so that they're compatible across a wider range, because they're transient dependencies. These are all issues that came up that have been fed back to the team so that we can get better as an ecosystem going forward.
Oh, all right. This one's Danielle, I think. I'm creating a web app and it's running in debug mode, but not running in release mode.
We don't like those issues.
Right up my alley, but wow. There are differences between debug and release. There can be timing differences. There can be, stuff in asserts, things like that. So, yeah, I can't tell you why it's happening, but I can believe it's happening, and even somewhat legitimately. But
release mode also does full tree shaking, so maybe it's getting rid of code that in debug mode they're actually evaling to.
Well, this is going to say like that. That's where we're saying, like with asserts, right? If you've got some sort of conditionals that are saying K is debug mode, do this, or K is release mode, do that, then yeah, I can see that would be a change. But to be honest, that's going to be few and far between.
Right.
Raman, just check to make sure that your uses is K debug mode, K release mode, K profile mode. Those things.
Go to the next question. He actually asked it again with a little bit more detail. Not that it's that much helpful.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm creating a web app and it's running in debug mode, but not running in release mode. And we've implemented the Supabase real time, in which this is locally hosted.
So it didn't help me, but I did. think we should show the rest of the question.
I'm gonna. Okay. Hang on. Hold on. Something just clicked. Your debug mode is going to be running on local host. Your release, is that running local host or is that running somewhere else? Because you get different, your browser acts differently if it's querying to local host versus if it's querying on domain. So what you might be experiencing is problems with the web server or how you're serving it, and CORS, CORS, CORS headers, cross origin requests, something or other. Right.
Realistically,
yeah.
I was going to say, realistically, we need to know what does not running mean.
Yeah.
That's all.
It could mean there's some parts of it that aren't working. I don't know.
Also, maybe check the console. What does it say in the browser?
Yeah. Too often people don't check that. Yeah, that's a good one.
All right. Okay.
Go on.
Is it possible to wait for all futures in a named record? And I checked out this gist, and it is sort of interesting. So
you got? Do you want to share? And or do you want me to share it?
I want you to share. You're always great.
Yeah, hang on.
You have sharing mastered. You could just and somehow 5 screens come up all at once. I don't know how you do all that.
So waiting for futures in named record. Okay, so we've got 4.2 triples, get double, get string, unnamed record, name record. Gotcha. So
there is extensions that allow for a 2-element record, a 3-element record, a 4-element record with .wait on the end to turn into a future of records rather than a record of futures. But those are specially added to the language as an extension. For named records, it would be impossible to have every possible named shape have .wait work on that.
Can you extract the values from a record like you could on a map?
No.
I mean, you can't. I mean, this is the whole point of records, right? The whole point of records is you're not doing that. I mean, to be honest, I'm like, at this point, I would say use a class, right? It has to have your names field, use a class, and then you can have a getter on your class that returns a list of the futures, right?
Right. This is record abuse. I mean, record are very specific.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. We need t-shirts, like Peter t-shirts, like record abuse is in Dart is a real thing. If you see it, report it to this number.
Well, I think the thing about records is when they were released, they were interestingly attractive because you could do a bunch of new things that you couldn't before, but they were also very specifically narrow cased for usage, so that if you had anything that was sort of outside that realm, it was way better immediately to go to creating your own data class or something to really manage that. This is sort of just a way of getting structured data into and out of functions, basically. I think that's kind of the primary use of records.
I do think there's something that we're missing with records. Is because records, named or unnamed records, act as like same as a parameter set. It'd be nice to be able to like capture parameters as a record or give parameters to a function from a record, right?
Oh, there's suggestions of that already.
Because Python does that, and it makes things super interesting and super constructive ways of doing things. KWArgs, I think they call it in Python, but the notion that you could call a function with a record and the record is the set of parameters for the function is really helpful.
Yeah. And the other thing people don't understand is even if you use a type def to say type def A is this 2 int elements, type def B is these 2 int elements, that does not create 2 distinct types. Those
the same
type is based on the shape, and it's not based on the name that you give it as a type def. And so that's where you get lost as well. I mean, at that point, again, you should be using a brand new class that has a 2-element params. That's people get nuts with this stuff. All right, enough on that. Enough on that.
Today's my planning week, so I got to go.
Right. Nice to see you again, Danielle.
Yeah,
see you again soon.
And I'll see you next week.
Bye for now.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes. Right. So here we go. Flutter assets don't load in the first run when using Flutter as a dynamic feature module in a native Android app. That's way out of my league. Hopefully
okay, so I've not actually attempted that, but I will say Flutter has a way of loading its asset bundle, and you could force that asset bundle to be loaded, the default one. So I suspect probably just ensuring that it's forcefully loading the asset bundle, it's probably going to solve your problem. I suspect it's probably because when you load the app by default, it's going to load the default asset bundle. And if you're dynamically loading a feature, then it doesn't default load the asset bundle. So let me see if I can bring this up on stream. Let's bring this. Is this the one?
And madly uses Google to find the solutions he wants.
So, default asset bundle is the way it's actually is the type of bundle that's loaded. You can also load it in. Yeah, root bundle. That's it. So applications have a root bundle which contains the resources that were packaged with the application when it's built. To add resources to the root bundle, add them to your asset section in your Flutter package. Rather than accessing root bundle as global static, consider you obtaining an asset bundle from the current context, default asset bundle of. Basically, they need to be overridden. Blah, 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 blah. So, in effect, you should be able to use root bundle and actually call its load method, right? To load whatever data you want. That should tell it to load it and cache it in. Damn, it's been a while.
It might be that this is like add to app for Android, though, right?
Yeah, this is I think this component's loading, right? This is not add to app. Delayed components. Is maybe Copo, if you're still here, just pop in there in the chat a bit more. I think it's called delayed components. Like that. Deferred components. See, I was close. Deferred components this is what it is, right? Yeah, it's a lazy load features, and this works on Android and so on. So you're loading asset bundles. I assume that the native code doesn't trigger the asset bundle that's being loaded in to load. There's no reason why you can't load it. Hang on. Let's have a quick nose. It's been a while since I looked at this, so. For those that don't know what I'm looking at, this is the Java doc for Android. So I'll post a link in the chat. This is part of the API documentation, and it allows you to see what the native what's the word? The native
engine.
Host environment.
Host.
Yeah, native host for Android is. There's also one for Objective-C / iOS, and it's changed its name. I can't remember what it is.
And for a while, it wasn't linked properly, as I recall.
Yes. Have a hunt around, Copa. I'm pretty sure. Wait, Copa. Is that PK? It's PK, isn't it? I can't remember. Sorry. I know there's I had to play around with bundles, the default bundle stuff right at the very beginning of Flutter stuff. So it's interesting idea, right? Like the idea that you can load assets, you can compile a bundle, load it over the network, unpack data. It's just not often used for most applications. So maybe you can elaborate a bit more, and we'll come back to us next week with any feedback that you've got.
Yvonne, I'm interested in trying to run Flutter on an embedded device with a screen. Which devices and how? Hey, Simon, you might know a little bit about this.
Yeah. So, Mike, that is literally the job of the embedded developer to work out which device and how they do it. This is the nature of embedded development. So, there is a set of requirements set out that Flutter will run on. So what you care about, Mike, is what devices you can get the code to compile on, right? That's one. And then, compile for. Let me be clear, because you have cross compilation. So you might be compiling on your Mac or your Windows machine for an ARM embedded device, right? And that ARM embedded device is the one that you actually want to run your code on, right? So you're compiling it for that. So you want to make sure the device you're compiling for has a chip that is supported by Dart and Flutter as the output. Hang a minute. Coming in, PK. There you go. PK, is it code per you? Was that someone else? Did I get mixed up?
Yeah, it's me only.
Okay, yeah, to make sure I wasn't like because you changed your name so many times. Just I am the PK. Just have that everywhere. See, it's so much easier. Right? The one only PK is here. For those that don't know, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah. So basically, I used to run this channel called MTech Viral. Now it's called Codeful. That's how people know me. And yeah, it's been a long time. We have been a part of the Flutter community, and I think it's my fourth time in the channel. So always good to be here.
Welcome anytime. So,
like a subscribe.
Yeah. Let's just quickly carry on with this question, and we can get back to your one actually, if you want. Embedded devices, right? So the quickest option, Mike, if you're trying to just like get sort of around this right now, is any device that runs Linux that is ARM 64-bit compatible or RISC-V 64-bit compatible. These are your kind of things. You can go into. There's some pages I'm not going to dig them out now. There's some pages on in the Flutter repo or the Dart repo about what their device support is. For the life of me, I can't remember. Is there like a Dart releases? I feel like there's a Dart releases page.
There's a couple different levels of Dart releases. One is all the detailed commits, and the other is like sort of the high-level hand wavings.
Hang on, let's just see if I can
What are you looking for?
To find them.
Yeah, here we go. Let me just so here, for example, stable channel, right? So picking your operating system, and you can see here the architectures that are supported by Dart. So yeah, you're going to need ARM v8 or 64-bit ARM. There's also ARM v7. This is for Dart, right? So this is the lang, and then there's your RISC-V. It has to be RISC-V 64-bit with GC, which is the ISA capabilities. That's like general purpose registers and floating point, or 32-bit Intel and 64-bit Intel as well. That's on Linux. Obviously, Mac has these two, which is obviously your M3, M4, and M1, 2, 3, and your Intel chips, and then Windows is Intel and ARM as well. So this kind of gives you kind of sort of the breakdown of all the different compatibilities for Dart itself as a language. Flutter does not support all of those targets yet, but it does for the you will get Intel x86, ARM x86 right now for sure. So you're talking about an embedded device. You want to find one that runs ideally a Linux, even a small Linux build of 64-bit ARM, or hopefully RISC-V soon. And in fact, I'm working on this little embedded platform here to build to get Dart code working with some different types of display. So that's coming soon. But
If I can add to that question,
Sure.
You might check the website industrialflutter.com.
Ooh.
They
Oh
are
yeah,
doing
that's the people.
some
Yeah.
embedded devices with Flutter. And someone, if you can paste the link, so
I'll get up on the. I'll get.
So they are doing strictly embedded devices like Raspberry Pi and different ones. So they have some lists. They also have blog posts. For example, here on the screen you have like Flutter on ARM v6, and yeah, you might check the blog. They also have like a YouTube channel. So
nice. I haven't had a chance. I didn't get a chance to catch up with them actually. They're at FlutterCon, and I didn't get a chance to catch up with them. So
I think they made a presentation actually about Flutter Pi. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll put the link is in. Put a link to this in the chat. Nice.
And just to let everyone know, we have 8 questions in the queue still, so we're going to cut off now. And I'll come back in 166 hours to express your questions.
Right. What's next?
Oh, sorry. That's my cue, isn't it? Ah.
Yeah.
All right. Duh. Okay. How about this? I think is the next one. Does Android 14 have problem in Bluetooth communicating with HC05 module? And if I disconnect the Bluetooth from the Android, it still gets data from the device, but this problem is not in less than 12 Android VR. I have no idea what any of that is.
Welcome to the world of devices.
And Bluetooth.
And Bluetooth, yeah, specifically. Yeah. So different versions of Android have different Bluetooth stacks. I'm pretty sure they use BlueStacks in. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to say that because it's been a while since I looked. I'm pretty much sure it's been stable for quite some versions now, and I would assume that 12 through 14 can have the same one. I don't know, but equally, yeah. I mean, these are the kind of things that happen.
Every generation, every technology we have that's slightly flexible creates incompatibilities.
I mean, what is the problem here?
All the way back to RS-232. It's horrible. Everything's always sort of kind of fits.
I mean, you're just saying that you're saying your device still gets Bluetooth data from the Android phone? Am I reading this right?
I don't know.
Is it trying to connect with
disconnect the Bluetooth from Android. It means the device from Android, or it means turns off Bluetooth on the Android device. I still get data from the device. I from the device or from there's too many phrases here. You have to be more clear.
I think what he means is that when he switch off the Bluetooth from Android device and he still is receiving the data, something like that.
Yeah, maybe he's still receiving data on his external Bluetooth device, or I mean, you might be getting what's been buffered in the buffers.
Yep.
I mean, if you're trying to push data at a really high data rate now locally, you're going to get buffer data for a period, right? I mean, what you want to do is send a different type of disconnect message, right? If you're doing your own Bluetooth low energy communication, just send a packet that describes that the device has been disconnected, right? Or it's being disconnected, or they're unpairing it, or whatever it might be. I mean, honestly, this is going to happen. You need to, especially when it comes to wireless communication, you need to be very flexible in the way that you program your stuff, right? The idea is if it gets disconnected, you say, okay, you've been disconnected, and stop processing the data, even if you keep receiving data, right?
Okay. From that, let's go on. How to take a screenshot in the golden test for a video player widget.
Don't.
Yeah, how do you have a golden test for something that moves?
Well, first of all, there's a golden test for a video. It doesn't work because a golden test is for an image, right? And even if you could do that, the image that you'd be taking would be like the thumbnail or whatever it is that you're trying to display at the beginning. And the problem you've got with the golden test with the video player widget is that it's a GPU texture, which means you can't software render it. So you're going to get a black box probably. And that's probably what you're experiencing right now. Yeah, just have it with a black box, or display your own thumbnail in your own widget and the app, and have the play button flip out the widgets.
Or ignore the area, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it'll be black. If it's black on every time, then it's fine.
Oh,
No? Okay.
No?
Okay. Icons are not displaying properly in a Flutter web when I've deployed to my server. It works fine on a local machine. I deployed a counter up to my server, and then the add icon is wrong.
I saw that recently, and I've seen that before.
Maybe a renderer problem, I feel, on a specific, like maybe if you try switching from CanvasKit to HTML render, maybe.
It could be that. I don't, even if it was that, I don't, that's not really the problem. It's probably trying to load the icons from a file, and you've got cause header problem, which is quite possible. So it's trying to load data, and the server that's sending the data doesn't allow your local machine addresses to connect to it. That's definitely a possibility, because the fonts are loaded like images as external assets.
Yep. I think I have seen this issue. It basically happens because of this thing only. When you use one of those renderers, it does not use the image, like if you use CanvasKit, so it does not use the image component of the HTML render, right? So it tries to fetch from a URL, and then the server is not probably allowing those CORS policy and things like that. So maybe his server is blocking the URLs, which are the external URLs, and that's why the icons are not rendering.
Yep. There's also, I feel like there's also a thing that can occur when you're compiling. You strip out the icons you're not using, all that kind of stuff, and you get like a custom font made in Serp. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while. I'm assuming. So, Madhan, are you getting what's called a tofu symbol, which is a box with an X, or are you actually getting just nothing being displayed? Because there's a difference. So it'd be really nice to know what you're getting.
Yeah.
So it's like a rectangle with an X through it. Let us know.
Yeah.
Take a look.
Follow up, please. All right. Yeah. Have you tried setting up the Flutter dev environment on the new Snapdragon laptops?
No.
No?
I haven't got any.
But you can sponsor one, so we will try.
Right.
I know. Raf knows Paco as well from the London meetups, but he was one of the very first people to get one of the Pine 64 laptops and started developing on that as well, which was definitely cool. I'm assuming, Paco, you got yourself a Snapdragon laptop and you want to try and get it working, and you want help from us, because I've not done that yet. But you should drop by the study group or the Zoom at some point, and we can give it a go. But
I think it should work, by the way, like just out of the box. I don't know the reason why it should not work.
I'm wondering if it's trying to, because it's the Snapdragons are based on ARM, or they're based on RISC.
They're based on ARM64, but I think there might be no Dart compiled for Windows for ARM64.
Well, it definitely does support that, but it may be that the Flutter engine,
maybe binary is not there.
No, I know. I'm saying there are binaries definitely for Dart for Windows ARM64, right?
Okay.
But it may be that the combination is not enabled in Flutter engine and Flutter itself, which means Flutter doesn't deploy with that version of Dart, which has happened before. I did some things with that. So, yeah, try have a look. If it doesn't work out of the box, then I'd say raise an issue and maybe go hunting. So you'll find in the Flutter engine repo, you can try compiling the engine yourself on that laptop, and that'll probably give you a version that will work. And you can actually run Flutter with local engine as the --local engine and point it to the output folder of your engine compilation. And you should have a working version of Flutter and Dart that you can use locally on that machine. Doesn't matter, it doesn't support it. If the build doesn't work, it'll be because somewhere in one of the Bazel build files, it's pointing or doesn't have a selection for that processor and that combination of operating system, in which case add it, submit a PR. I'm sure they'll accept it.
Why I'm thinking
The
that
same
it
thing with
was
Linux on ARM64. You need to switch to master channel, and then it will download the Dart for ARM.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, try running off of master. Yeah.
Once I try building it with Dex, right? The Samsung Dex. So I'm assuming that it was working with Dex, so most likely. But that's a Linux-based OS kind of setup which it gives you because it's Android. So that works. So I'm assuming that, Snapdragon laptop should also work.
In theory. Let us know. Come back next week, Paco, and tell us.
What part of the code is responsible for showing the splash on iOS? I've used Flutter native splash, and now I just removed it, but it's still showing the splash.
So Flutter native splash generates the splash files. It doesn't show the splash files, right? You need to go in. You need to open up the iOS folder in Xcode. So you go onto Mac, open up Xcode, and then when it says project, you choose the workspace file, specifically the workspace file inside the iOS folder of your Flutter project. And then inside there, you'll find that there's a splash storyboard.
Storyboard, probably, yeah.
Storyboard, yeah. And that will have changes in the graphic in it and so on. You can do whatever change you want. You can delete the image, you can put text, you can do whatever you want. But generally, the Flutter native splash, what it's doing is altering those files for you based on some simple YAML configuration.
You could always just delete that directory and then do Flutter create dot again, and then it should reset it back to the beginning.
Yeah, but you'll get like a white screen by default, or the Flutter logo or something like that. So, yeah, if you're just trying to make the change for entertaining, then just go and make the change yourself if you've got a concern.
Yep. All right. Getting close to the end here. I'm trying to create my own translation solution which changes strings itself into translated strings based on current locale.
Yeah.
That's what translation is, right?
Right. Great. What's the question?
Right. It's got a Q in front of it. I don't know. There's a question here somewhere.
Shivan Shu. Yeah, what's your question? I don't see a question here. Are you asking how to do this kind of thing? I mean, the localization system that's built into Flutter already supports this, right? So it supports loading and asking which locale to support and load a particular locale and so on and so forth. You can do all this. It's always synchronous. You have a load from JSON file. You have it called network. You can do whatever you want. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can, right? Definitely cache things if you can load from network. Yeah, I wouldn't do live translations either, right? So this isn't about when someone fetches some content, you go translate it, because you're just going to slow down your entire user interaction for no good reason. What most of the localize with a K, localize with LOCK, localize lead, all these other localization providers, they offer services where they translate in the back end, and then the app will download the file. You're downloading a file which contains all the possible translations for all the strings inside the app. That can be cached locally and then referenced. So when you switch languages, it's instantaneously it's there. However, what you could do is do something where if you don't have a language translated, it makes an API call to the server, asks it to do the translations or something, update that file, and then download the most recent version next time, right? Or something like that. So the first person to use that language, it will be translated for after the fact, right? I mean, you can do all sorts of things, right? The world is your oyster. I just don't think you should make it more complicated than it needs to be.
Do you know of any library to create an HTTP2 server in Flutter? Where can I find a good description of how HTTP2 works? How can I start to implement it myself?
There's a HTTP package does that, I think.
Shelf does this too, right?
Um,
Shelf knows how to do HTTP2.
So it's kind of interesting because it doesn't really explain it. Let me have a quick look. Yeah, let me bring this up. Oh, wrong tab. Oh, welcome back.
I think gRPC is also a good one to try.
Sure. So there's a package called HTTP2. There you go. Right.
Done.
By the Dart team. This is the official package. And as you see, it provides HTTP2 interface on top of a bidirectional stream of bytes. That is the nature of it, right? The problem here is I think people just don't understand like necessarily how HTTP2 integrates with other things. As you can see here, this creates a it's called a TLS socket connection, a secure socket connection, and says the protocol is H2, which is HTTP2, and then you make your request, and this is making the request with the headers, and this is all very raw, right? But what you can do is, if you go look at the reference, you've got negotiating of multi-protocol server here. And it's basically that. Like here it is, handles 1, handles 2. And when you start serving, you're going to get a transport stream. And it's up to you to read those incoming stream messages and then send out output stream messages. I think, is there shelf HTTP2? I'm not sure. But yeah, it's no real different from normal HTTP. Is there shelf? HTTP multi-server wrapper that handles multiple servers. That sounds interesting. Is that what we want? Maybe. It doesn't specifically say HTTP2 if it means multiple HTTP servers, maybe. That's not clear at all. Oh no, this is just iterable. So this is wrapping multiple instances and round robin in them. So yeah, that's not helpful.
There's an open issue on Dart's GitHub.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm not
literally
sure if
did. Yeah, I did this not too long ago. Let me see if I can find it.
Follow-up question here, but can I create a server with this library, or isn't it just a client?
No, it's server as well. It's the same protocol. It's because it's by. Okay, here's the problem, right? Most people see it as being different. It's not. It's bidirectional, right? So the idea is it's the same protocol on both sides. You're sending requests and responses. Like, yeah, it's the same library for both. The protocol is the same. Let me see if I can find an example I was doing. This is kind of janky, but I think it would do as an example. I can't really publish this as it is because it's just really bad. But maybe I can. I'll screen share right now, and then maybe I'll post it once I actually get it finished. I'll post it as an example. Let's see. Maybe I can run this. Can I run this?
At least we apparently answered the question. So
give me 1 second here, and
always good to have satisfied customers here.
See if I can make this work. No, of course it won't right now. Well, I'll just share this anyway, and then you can. Cool. Maybe we can do some live coding on it next week if people are interested, right? So, make this bigger.
That was the last question. So,
we could code on it if people can stick around, I guess. Let me make that bigger. No,
I'm a little faded, but I can probably hold out for a little longer.
So So this is I was working like a little example here of what you might do for a HTTP server. So here's the main entry point. We're gonna create a particular handler, create a security context for some local certificates, create a secure socket, give it what protocols that we want to support. And in this case, we're creating a 1.1 controller, server, 2 controller. We'll listen on the secure socket, and then based on the requested protocol, we'll initiate a different type of connection, right? So one, if it's HTTP2, then we're going to create this server transport connection is what's in that HTTP2 library. There's nothing to it, right? You're just saying via the socket that's coming in, start up this handler, and any incoming stream on that connection, we're going to start a handler for it. And then I've got the controller actually here listening to it and handling that stream. So this is taking a stream and saying, I'm going to handle it. This is all just debug logging right now, but the general gist here is when a stream comes in, we're going to listen to those incoming messages. And when we get headers, we're going to buffer those request headers. We get data, we buffer the data. And when we get told that we got the end of the stream, then we can then build all those together to build a request model, right? So this is what you would normally receive on HTTP on a standard HTTP server. And then we're going to then send that over to the handler, get the response. And in the response, we can then break out the response headers, send the response data, and then also end that stream. So this is very basically doing HTTP1 style request response over HTTP2. But HTTP2 allows you to do a lot more, right? So HTTP2 is a transport streams are sort of data messages. So you get this you get like headers and you get data, but you can send data at any point, right? You can send headers at any point, and they're identified by a stream ID. So you can have multiple streams being sent down one server, right? One server thing. I think
this reminds me a lot of WebSockets. Is this like next generation WebSockets?
So this is WebSockets. There's an overlap because it's bidirectional, right? But the idea here is that this, by doing things in fact, there's some graphics. Maybe I can load some graphics here.
Okay.
Stream diagram. Let's see if I can find. Trying to see if I can find an interesting image that kind of.
Ask Gemini.
Okay, this might allude to some information here that we can share.
Gemini, make an image of HTTP2.
So,
yeah.
So this is kind of what you just the stack of what you see, right? So you've got there's different. You can go look up the 7 levels of network. I can't remember what the hell they are now. Been a while, but anyway, you got the hardware layers, which are about transmitting packets between equipment, and eventually you get up to IP, right, which is the network layer, right? So this is like how you communicate between computers on IPs and ports. IPs. Then you have your TCP, which is more about how you communicate with IPs and ports and have acknowledgements of data being sent back and forth. On top of that, we have a session-based protocol called TLS. This is HTTPS. This is how encryption works, all the new stuff. And then binary framing and the actual HTTP2 application layer is inside the TLS streams, right? So this allows you to, it basically means that HTTP2 is always secure, is always TLS. You can do this framing over straight over TCP without it. But what's going to happen is it's not going to, it's not the same. Put it that way. I'll not going into it anyway. And there you go. So there's the difference there. So you got HTTP1, which might have your headers and your content, and these are because they're different data frames, and you can send multiple header frames, multiple data frames, right, in one stream. And this kind of let's just have a quick look here. Stream bidirectional flow of bytes, message frame. So you might have multiple. The idea is you have one network connection which has multiple requests going over it. So you might send your client might send 5 sets of headers for 5 different streams, all at the same time. It doesn't make a difference to the server, and the server sends back the data in chunks for many different requests. So this maximizes the throughput and stops what's called a head of line blocking, right? There's still what's called TCP blocking. So this is when your packets being returned have to be assembled in order. This is how TCP is supposed to work. But they've got over this now by using UDP, and there's that's HTTP3, which is coming in the future anyway. But yeah, so you get this kind of approach to. It talks about it here. I'll post the link to this article because it's quite nice. But as you can see here, you can receive data in, as I was saying, in different streams and blah, blah, blah. Header compression as well is a thing. So you don't have to resend the headers all over again. And how you enable it, how you make it backwards compatible, blah, 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 blah. So there's a good example there, right? So this is kind of interesting, right? A page load with HTTP1. So the requests versus I guess the response coming back, the green bits, or maybe this is when it's waiting to make the request. So this is like the server's handling maybe five network connections at a time, right? So you kind of get this like trickling effect. So the content's requested later, maybe takes longer time to load. And then you've kind of got the page load times with HTTP2. So there's a direct comparison here. So say it took 9 seconds on 1.1 and 4.1 seconds on HTTP2, right? And this just shows you here how it's handling them instead. So multiple streams can be requested. It's up to the server to respond back to them, right? So there's the wait time is pushed from client side to server side, right? Depends on how you build your server and client. But yeah, I'll pop this link in the channel if anyone's interested.
I was going to say that's the next step is to share the link.
Research.
Cool.
Yeah, I think yeah, let's leave it there for now. But yeah, there's several things you can do in terms of with HTTP2. Yeah.
Cool. Right. Well, we're at the 2-hour mark on the show. Might as well wrap it up here unless you want to start live coding for another hour and a half.
No, I've got work to do. Sorry.
Me too.
If people are interested in HTTP2, let us know in the chat, and then and tweet us. You got our Twitter handles on the screen now, and then we can do maybe a dedicated HTTP2 stream and showing how you do some of these things, and I don't know, maybe do an actual comparison of the differences between them.
Thanks, Professor Alan.
Right.
For stopping by.
Thank you for stopping by, everyone.
Any thoughts on the
Cool.
forcefully loading the assets?
I know we speak about the stream. Is there anything that you didn't get from what I was answering?
Oh, all right.
Did you see my answer? Sorry.
Yeah, I saw it, but
I mean, so the problem you're getting is you're doing what are they called now? Delayed components. What are they called? Deferred components. Sorry.
deferred components. Yeah. Yep.
Right. And you're saying that it's not loading the assets immediately, but when you first use the assets, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So just forcefully request the assets at the beginning when you're loading the module. Can you not do that?
Using the default asset bundle.
Well, let's take a look. I mean, let's see.
Because I tried multiple things, but it didn't work for some reason. Sorry.
Let's have a quick look here. Bear with.
Right. So you guys take a look at the assets.
Yeah,
By the way, I
Everything
think
else.
it's a great idea to,
So have fun, guys. Cheers.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for dropping by.
Thanks, man. I think it's a great idea of using Flutter as a dynamic module, because I have suggested it to many people, because when people were concerned about initial app size, so that just
It's
goes
only
away.
supported on certain platforms, though. It needs to be moved into a language component, and that's kind of also where, there's other complexities to that. When you load a component, you get some hooks you can trigger onto from that, right? Flutter injector build, right?
Haven't tried that.
Flutter embedding engine dynamic features, place store deferred component manager. Okay, I'm just going to go hunting here. Sorry, guys. 1 second. Flutter shell platform. It's called dynamic feature manager. Okay. They changed the name of it. It's no good. Dynamic. Really? Might take a look at the source code. Hang on. Feature embedding engine. It looks like the Java doc might be out of date. Hang on. Yeah, deferred components has not been listed under the documentation. Bear with. Flutter shell platform embedding.
Have you tried a similar stuff on iOS as well, Simon?
You can't.
You
Doesn't
can't,
work.
right?
It's on the deferred components page, right? The deferred components page. I mean, you can do this kind of thing yourself, right? Like it depends on what you're trying to load, though. But I mean, this is the half the problem reason why Shorebird exists and things like that, right? Where you can actually remote push code, right? It's essentially the same thing, right? You're trying to defer loading of code. But you could also do it with assets. I mean, it depends on what you're trying to load, right?
I mean, it's normal assets like the images and everything, whichever is in Flutter code, basically, and
Right.
those assets are not loading.
But if it's just the assets, then you can just download those as a bundle and just load them, right? I mean,
what alternative I did was, like, I stored them somewhere in, let's say, Firebase storage and things like that, and just using it as a network asset. But I mean, I was just wondering why it didn't work. So yeah, I understood what could be the problem. But yeah, I mean, maybe I can download, and I don't know. I mean, I can try it.
just bear with me here. So I'm trying to platform. Right. I mean, I can share this actually. No, I can just share this. Window. I mean, I was just hunting through here, just trying to find. So, yeah, it was renamed. I was just trying to find out where the new deferred components have been loaded from. We got them loading, embedding, and the documentation doesn't actually have documentation for this. So, deferred components. So here's your deferred component manager.
Yep.
Ah. What's that first line there? Flutter JNI is required to also properly execute load assets and load Dart library.
I'm using Flutter JNI now.
No, but is this are you calling this deferred component manager set JNI function?
No, I don't think so.
Maybe it's not loading it then. Because it may be because this is going to load using the deferred component system of Android, right? And then it's saying that it has to do this to call load assets, right? To actually load it in. So there's one bit which is loading the actual deferred component in the operating system layer. And then the next one is to load the assets here, like extract and load assets, resources from deferred component for use by Flutter library. This method should provide a refreshed asset manager to Flutter JNI update asset manager that can access the new assets. If no assets are included as part of the deferred component, then nothing needs to be done. If you're using the placeholder deferred component delivery, refresh the context via this. Create package context, package name. This returns a new context from which the update asset manager can be obtained. So it sounds to me like this is possibly, obviously, this is the issue around this, right?
Yeah.
Assets should be loaded before the Dart deferred library is loaded, and a successful loading of the Dart library indicates the deferred component is fully loaded. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so this is like the interface, right? I'll put this link in the chat so anyone that wants to kind of follow along. And then the Play Store implementation. This is an implementation of it, which uses the Play Store. I'm assuming this is going to be called load assets. Yeah. So load assets after it's installed. So
this already does this thing, no? I mean, you have to invoke them explicitly.
It's this is the interesting piece. Update as a specified asset manager. Asset manager is an Android concept. As an APK resolver to the Flutter engine's asset manager. I mean, maybe just in. I wonder if set JNI is actually. Verify JNI. I mean, that would assume that it's working because it has to do it to load the assets, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because it's going to call verify and actually to check to make sure it works. So, I mean, if it's not working first time, you might have found an issue there with maybe some sort of caching, like update Java Asset Manager here is not actually. If you follow this down, it may not be clearing its previous cached instance of the deferred component.
Mm-hmm.
Are you using the root bundle?
Nope.
So how are you getting access to the assets?
I mean, I'm not yeah.
Go on.
So I'm not accessing the asset inside the native module as such. I'm just using it as a normal Flutter module inside the native app, and using the normal asset images and all. Specifically, not using the root bundle. I can try that, but
if you're using okay, what do you mean not use? Sorry, if you're creating a normal asset image, it's going to always use the default root bundle unless you specify a different package.
No. So that means it uses the root bundle itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not explicitly using anything else. Yeah.
So
This I checked. I think this is correct only.
I mean, you could simply just be having a cached instance of the original, right? So for this to be available in here, for the assets to be available, then I wonder if there's actually, that's an interesting point. I wonder if there's platform.
Maybe this is something I can try.
I mean, I would have to run it, right? So maybe you can get, if you want to explore it, get like a little example together and we can run it. But yeah, I think I can run off the bat right now.
Yeah, I think it's easier to example for this.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? So we could go have a look and see like where it's actually updating. I mean, let's have a quick look. And why not? Let's follow it, right? So here, update Java Asset Manager is calling ensure main thread attached to native, sure, being prepared, and then it's calling this function. So the question is, this is declared as a native function, which means it's accessed through JNI. So there'll be a C++ file that declares that code. It won't be in here. It'll be in here. Should be in here. Okay, well, let's go have a look. Here it is. Oh, it is there. Oh,
yeah, this.
Yeah. So here's the function and the signature there, and here's the function pointer. So what this is saying is this is the function that's been exported to JNI. Here is the function signature. So this is I can't remember what J is, but then you've got L Android Asset Manager is the class, L Java String is the next class. It's probably an integer followed by not an integer, a long followed by an asset manager followed by string, and it returns a void. So this is like JNI way of declaring what the parameters should be, and then here's the function. Oh yeah, JLong, yeah, shell holder.
Yeah.
So this is the C++ code that's going to be called when that happens, when the update happens. So APK asset provider, based on the asset manager and bundle path, asset resolver by type, APK asset provider. Interesting.
How does it work? Like, does it just merge the assets from Flutter to native?
It marshals it? Yeah. Well, there's a. When I last looked at this, it marshaled it across with platform channels. I'm not sure it does it the same way anymore. It's been a while since I've had to look at it. So when the whole okay, so let's just take a step back here for those that don't know. So assets, let's say you ship an image with your app, that asset is actually shipped as part of the bundle of resources attached to your Flutter code. However, if you interact with some native plugin, that native plugin needs to be able to access those resources. So what they do and what they changed is at some point they decided to bundle them twice, which was just silly, right? And then what happened was they decided to bundle them once depending on how you compile your app for what platform, it will compile them once as native assets, right? So they get compiled, bundled with your application as Android assets, and then they get dropped to disk once your app loads, and then you can access them via files. It generates a It's like assets bundle.json or something like this, and it's an index of all of the keys and all of where those files are located. And this allows the system to, when you query for a particular bundle file, it knows where to go get that file from. So the idea here is that if the idea is that any native code can access the same bundled assets as well as the Dart code, and those things have to be marshaled together across platform channels or across disk access to resolve them, basically. Anyway, so update assets resolver seems to be, we can sort of chase this down, but yeah, no, this is going to take us back. Delegate. What is delegate when it's at home? JNI facade. Oh, this is going to be not great to browse in this way.
I don't need to bow out. I'm getting.
All right. Well, let's park it here. But yeah, there's hang on. Let's have a quick look. I mean, I'm not seeing anything in here that just jumps out to me as it's not doing its job. Maybe you might need to. I mean, if you're doing this, complete, just briefly, PK. If you're doing this, maybe straight after your assets are loaded, you might want to do a scheduled micro task, make sure it's happening on the next frame. There's a lot of pushing to the UI thread that's taking place here, which might mean that you've got to wait for the next cycle of the UI thread before the assets are available.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another thing. All right, let's park it here. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you same time, same place next week.
166 hours from now.
All right.
Right
Bye
here.
for now. Bye,
Thanks,
Ron.
Simon.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No worries.
Bye.